What's up, OG fam? Pete C here, and today I'm going to answer one of the internet's hottest questions. Should you bag the Castoplast Berg? And I'm going to be honest with you. Yes, you should. You definitely should. All right, so Jason, do you love the Berg, and why do you love the Berg?
Obviously, I do. I love the Berg because I love the feel of it. The feeling is so good. And I love how it plops down. It's my main upside disc. So can you make other discs do what the Berg does? Yes. But the Berg does it already. It's really pretty straight and then falls out of the sky. So it's really reliable in that sense. You can just aim it slightly right of the basket and it just falls down and doesn't roll much either.
And so, how much confidence do you have throwing the Berg?
Oh, a ton.
Is that your most confident disc?
Yes, it is.
But isn't that cheating?
Well, that should be decided.
All right, hey, how do you feel about the Berg?
See, I like the Berg. I know it gets a lot of hate, but it's a fun disc. It's got a fun shape. It's reliable. You can throw it really hard, and it won't go but like 150 feet to 200 feet. So if you like throwing it, throw it. Don't let anybody else tell you what you can and cannot throw.
All right, guys, tell me in 10 seconds why you love the Berg.
You can rip it as hard as you want to, and that baby will hold the line.
It's very thick. I love throwing it forehand, flicking it around.
How's the confidence?
High.
High confidence.
Oh,
Look
yeah,
at it.
high. Look at it. Yeah.
And it's not even named a pig.
Yeah,
Even better.
All right, Mike, how do you feel about the Berg?
Anything within, any shot within 250 feet, this thing is in my hand, no hesitation, I grab it. I stayed away from Bergs for a very long time, mainly because everybody said that this is not a good disc, it's useless, or it only does one thing. And I was at our local disc golf shop and I never held one, I picked it up and immediately just the feel, and I have a baseball because it's almost the same feel as a baseball on a forehand. That little dip or puddle on the top, your thumb, it doesn't sit flat like most of them. It kind of contours, kind of like your thumb on the side of a baseball. And so I picked it up and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna try this. And from then on, I mean, it's nothing but trust with this disc. Anheuser, it just holds the line. Hauser holds the line. You know, and for a one speed that you can actually throw confidently and it's not gonna turn and burn on you. It's going to just push straight. And whenever it does run out of its glide, it just falls straight down. So any tight gap, this thing, I don't know why you would throw anything else, honestly. And something crazy about it, unlike, let's say, any other one speed, you throw it on Anheuser, you're actually gonna get it to fade out, flex out, and land flat, instead of the old thrower or whatever. Like, I used to throw Envies a lot. And no matter what with them, it was coming up and it just wouldn't hold that line. Either it flexed out too soon or it was coming down too hard. And this one is perfect. And you know, and once I got one of these, just confidence. Like I said, anything 250 feet or less, that's what I go to.
Okay, so right off the bat, I need to let you know that Robbie is a good friend of mine, and I've checked with him to see if it's okay, I'm gonna do this response video. And so he's such a good guy. I'm a friend of his. We've done a lot of stuff together. As a matter of fact, he's the reason why I got into doing these videos. So this is all kind of having fun at his expense with his stuff, and also showing my respect to him because of all the things he's done. So this is not a hit piece. This is not, I'm not trying to stir up drama. I'm not trying to, Robbie sucks. Let's get more watches and get people outraged and get drama and everything going back and forth. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking to have a little fun and also address one kind of main thing that I'd like to say that kind of came off of his video and some of his stuff before. This is not a get back at Robbie or anything like that. So please understand the spirit of this is love and respect, and let's just have a discussion about this. But I am going to talk about one particular thing that he said about the Berg that I kind of scratched my head a little bit about. And so we're going to kind of work that out in this video, hopefully. All right, so I got to move out of here because this lighting is terrible. Before I do, I had to do one more, lineup shot. But what we're going to talk about today is how he addressed the idea of training wheels. And that's what I want to talk about. But let's go get in a little bit better spot. So the terminology of training wheels, the idea of training wheels kind of rubs me a little bit the wrong way. Not like I'm mad, Robbie, you suck, but more like I think I know the heart of Robbie, and his heart is to teach and to help. And so I don't believe at all his intention is to come across as condescending, but I think the way that's said can make it feel like if you throw a Berg, you're not as good a player as some other people, or you're using it as a crutch to your game, and really you need to move beyond the Berg to become a better player. And that's kind of what bothers me. So I've been thinking about, I have several different illustrations I've gone back and forth, but okay guys, which one of these is better? And which one would you consider more immature or something you start with and then you move on from there? These are tools. And the bottom line is, it's the carpenter or the craftsman and not the tools. And to say that one tool is a little bit less than another is putting a judgment factor on it that I don't think is there. Because the number one thing you have to ask in disc golf and in everything else is, what is the goal? And for tools, each project has a certain goal to it. So if I really need to knock the crap out of some stuff, yeah, I want to go with the sledge. If I need to hit some stuff without doing damage to some other stuff, it may be this right here, some body work or something like that. And if I need to make sure I don't mar stuff up, I want to do this. Each one of these does something extremely well. Now it can do other jobs. Like if you see this, I've used this, you never can find the right one when you need it. So I've used this to hit nails and stuff like that, hence the reason why I beat the crap out of it and beat it up, because I've tried to use it in ways it's not meant to be used. But also I think it's this whole judgment of some discs are better than others. Let's face it, guys. The best disc is the one that you can throw the best. I don't care what it is. It could be the old Frisbee pie tin. If you learn how to throw the crap out of that, throw that. And that's where I kind of get into this whole judgment about good disc, bad disc. They can have different flights, unusual flights, and some discs are going to be better for certain shots than others. But at the end of the day, the goal is to have the most fun and to score the best you can. And so there are certain shots that the Berg, and even Robbie said, does amazing. And then he would, what's funny is, he's sitting there trying to show how, you can do these shots with these other discs. And every time the Berg was getting closer. And so there was this, I feel like you could even see him wrestling with it to some degree because he wants to make a point. And I understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to say, this thing will teach you to simply get the disc to the basket, but it won't teach you a well-rounded game. And some of what Robbie's trying to do is teach you to be a well-rounded player. And the goal is to get you to be excellent in all stratas of disc golf. And I think that's very commendable. We're on hole number 1, and he threw it down there by the basket. But he said, it worked great for hole number 1. It was the closest one. But now we step up to hole number 2, and it's farther, and I'm gonna have to work more on this. So it's not good for that. Well, that's exactly what happens in regular golf. Just a second. Man, Robbie is so good about moving and changing his positions, different backgrounds and stuff like that. I can't be bothered. I literally just turned the camera around for this. But okay. So in golf, I have a sand wedge here, and I have a 5-iron. And guess what? I use them at different times. I love my sand wedge. As a matter of fact, I use it more than just in the sand trap. I use it around the green. I have a certain distance I can hit with this. I think about 90 yards. But that's actually helpful because I step up to a green and it's 90 yards away. I know I'm pulling out the sand iron. But then there are other holes that are longer. So now I've got to hit 150, 175. Well, probably used to be about 175 maybe with the 5. Don't quote me on that because I lie. But I think that's when I'd pull out, hey, the hole's 175 yards away. Now it's time for the 5-iron. The Berg is great for certain shots, just like the sand wedge is. If I'm in sand or I'm near the green, I'm pulling out the sand wedge and I'm trusting it every time. But it starts getting farther. I don't try to hit this one 150 yards. I change clubs. Now in golf, you're limited to, I believe, 14 clubs. You only have a limited number of clubs you can carry in a bag. Well, we're not at that point yet. And so I think the Berg has a great place in your bag for certain shots. Through your whole life, listen, I've been playing 30 years. I think the training wheels are off for me, and I love the Berg. It is so confident inspiring, so comfortable for me. Let's face it, I've had surgery. I've been out, I haven't thrown a disc in over 2 weeks. If I'm stepping up to hole number 1 here, let me flip this back around. If I'm stepping up to hole number 1 here, I'm not gonna throw today because I'm still kind of on the mend. If I had only 1 disc I was gonna throw, I'm grabbing the Berg because I can trust it more than any other disc. And we're gonna talk about why in just a second. But that's a big deal because I'm confident, I'm relaxed, I know I can trust this. And that's half the battle, being able to lean in and trust a disc. And this disc doesn't get squirrely. And heavens knows our game is squirrely enough. It's nice to have some things that aren't squirrely. This thing will just do what you want it to do, both forehand and backhand. I think you'll see in the comments, everybody's talking about forehand approaches. This thing is gold. And Robbie even touched on that, and thank you for the shout out. But it's just reliable. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the idea of there's more valor in struggle, or there's more valor in being able to manipulate and do tough shots. No, I want to make them as simple as possible. So yeah, can you tell? The whole training wheels thing, it rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. Robbie doesn't rub me the wrong way. It's that terminology. And I think he was trying to say something about you can get locked into using this disc and trusting it and not want to expand. And he's all about teaching and helping people expand their game. And he can see how people can just get lazy in one sense and just play with the Berg. And I get it. But at the same time, I think putting a disc, any disc, just like any tool, in a category and saying, yeah, that's only for certain people, or lazy people, or people who are, lazy is not the right word, because that's not what he was saying, but people who aren't going to progress further, that they're happy with their hobby, and that's good for them. It just felt like it's kind of like, oh, you throw a Berg, okay, you're a little bit lesser player than other people. And I know that's not what he was trying to say, but it kind of felt like that. And that's what I wanted to address. First of all, to let y'all know that Robbie would never intentionally say something like that. He would never put people down. That's not his intention. But also to address that I can see how people feel that way, because even though I know Robbie and all that, I kind of felt that way. Like, oh, so if I throw a Berg, you're thinking that, I should throw something else. It should be better. Obviously, probably a pig. And what's funny, though, is a pig is basically a faster Berg in a lot of ways. And so he understands it, and yet is fighting against it. Welcome to our world. We're humans. We are a ball of dichotomy and diversity and just messed upness. We'll go back to old Apostle Paul. We do things that we don't want to do, and we don't do things we want to do. We're a mess. If you love the Sonic, throw the Sonic forever, and I will cheerlead you on. Just like I love my birdie, he loves his polecat. We all find discs that we love that match our personality and how we like to play. And for a lot of people, this Berg is doing that. So anyway, I think if you haven't tried the Berg, I think you should, because of its accuracy. And let's face it, remember I said, what's the goal of the game? Well, it's to have fun, but also to get as close to the basket in as few shots as possible. So accuracy is a big deal. I'm gonna use some paper airplanes to discuss it right after this. Okay, so let's talk about the big thing that goes on with the Berg, and it's the zero glide. And people talk about how it drops out of the sky and why that's a good thing. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use good old paper airplanes as an example. Now, let's face it, this is probably kind of, it's a little bigger so you can see it, but the kind of airplane, at least when I was growing up, that we learned to make early on. It's just a simple dart, just a few folds, and it's good. And the nice thing about this dart is it's pretty reliable. It's just, just throw, and it's not going to do much. It's just going to go, and it's either going to fade a little this way or that way, but it's going to be pretty reliable, dependable. But as I developed my paper making skills, the next plane that I learned how to do because of my friend Rand Hughes was this guy right here. And it was a little more intricate folds to be able to create this, but this is a stunt plane. And when you throw it, you're no telling what it's going to do. It's going to zip around. It's going to do loop-de-loops. And for a third grader, it was the greatest thing ever because you just launch it as high as you could and let it just spin around, do all kinds of fun stuff. But it wasn't very accurate. And then I eventually gravitated to my favorite airplane design, this guy right here. And this guy is just a glide machine. As a matter of fact, I made one of these in my 8th grade science class one day, and I went to throw it to my buddy when the teacher wasn't looking. Went over his head, flew all the way across the class, because of course, I sat in the back because, I mean, let's face it, I couldn't stand to be up close to the teacher because I needed to move and all that stuff. I threw it, went over his head, flew all the way across the room and hit the blackboard where the teacher was. It was an amazing flight out of that disc. Now, it did cost me a day's detention, but I was hooked on that glide because it just wants to float. If I hadn't waited till it was dark out, I would show you outside. But this is all about glide. You just toss it and you get a good little release and it'll just sail, just cruise along. Now, why am I showing you these? Well, because each one of these kind of has a different goal. This one's to have fun and just do stunts. And this is your basic, in some ways we could think, training wheel type of airplane. And this guy will probably fly the farthest if you get it on the right shot with the right amount of glide. It'll just keep going and going forever. The problem is, if we were having an accuracy contest, not just pure distance, I would go with this guy all the time because it's much more reliable. Even though this has more glide and has the potential to go farther, unless I could throw the crap out of this. If I was a baseball or football player and I could just rip it, I might be able to overcome the glide of this with just pure power and just crunch us through the air. But where this guy shines is that it's going to be more accurate. I can aim and it's going to go for the most part where I'm aiming. And that's where glide and these other discs that have a little more glide can get you in trouble, especially when wind comes into play. That extra glide can get you to the goal, but it can also get you past the goal. It's a little more touchy to be able to get it to the goal, and that's why the Berg is actually so good for making those accurate shots. And to be honest, if you ever watched any paper airplane competitions that weren't just pure distance, but actual accuracy, the dart wins more of the time, but actually there's a dark horse in the whole paper making competition that people can't stand. But the best airplane for accuracy when you're doing a competition like that, sorry, that's probably loud, is this guy right here. And they've had to make different rules to disallow these because when it comes to accuracy, no glide whatsoever is the most accurate. This just lob and right to the basket. It's sort of like I should have pulled out my old blowfly. It was the whole reason why the blowfly, these guys were taking it and they were folding it up and making it like a football to make these approach shots because it took all the glide out of it. And that's a lot of what happens with the Berg, is it's so reliable because it takes the glide out of the equation and it's a simple point and shoot kind of throw. Yes, you've got to learn kind of how much power you got to engage in it, but it is not going to be squirrely. It's not going to be affected by the glide that can carry you offline more so, and that's why it's such a reliable, confident building disc. And I think it's a great disc for anybody out there. And so that's kind of where I wanted to go with this. I don't think that the Berg is only for certain people. I think it could be for everybody because the very reason that it is a brick allows you to pinpoint, just like cornhole, horseshoes, or whatever, to be able to drop it in by the basket with confidence. And I think that's what we need, is to have the most confidence-inducing disc that we can, the best tool in our bag that we can carry around with us. And I think the Berg is a really good one. Now, you don't have to bag it, but I really wish we wouldn't knock it and act like it's a lesser disc. And once again, hear me, I know Robbie is not doing that. Robbie's heart is to encourage and help everybody. So let's not make it about, well, he said it's training wheels. I think that he was trying to reach a certain illustration for you and for me, and I think it just came off a little bit. Sometimes these illustrations that trying to convey a message, the illustration doesn't hit the ears the same way it's leaving the person giving it to you. I know I give some terrible illustrations that I think are just genius, and we know that doesn't work out real well for me sometimes. But so cut them some slack on that, but I thought it would be a great opportunity to talk about sometimes you don't want any glide, you want accuracy. And there are other times you're trapped in the woods, you're trapped behind a bush, you don't have a lot of room to throw. That's where you want the extra glide so that you can do just a minimal move and still get the distance to it. So there's always a trade-off for what you want. Remember, the bottom line is what is the goal you're trying to achieve? And if for most of our approach shots, it's to get as close to the basket as possible, the easiest way with the most confidence, I think the Berg does a pretty good job.